Welcome back to Five Questions with Fellenbaum, our continuing series where we chat with members of our Brevard Philharmonic family. I'm joined today by Brevard Philharmonic Principal Trombonist Zsolt Szabo. And Zsolt, welcome to Five Questions with Fellenbaum.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Whenever I look at our roster of musicians in the Brevard Philharmonic, I always look at yours and think that's just the coolest name. Like Zsolt Szabo is the coolest name on our roster. And so I'll start with our first question, which is tell us where you're from and interesting places you've lived, your musical training, how long you've lived in North Carolina, and things like that.
Sure, sure. I was born in Romania. I grew up in the western part of Romania in a region called Transylvania, the
Mm.
real original Transylvania. Yes, that's where
Ah.
my name is from. Yes, it's true. And I'm an ethnic Hungarian. Transylvania is a mixed region of Romanians and Hungarians. So I grew up as an ethnic Hungarian, and I lived there for during my undergrad years, and I moved to the States in 2005 to continue with a master's degree. I went to a university and a music academy, rather. It's called the Gheorghe Dima Music Academy. It's in the largest town in Transylvania called Cluj-Napoca. So that's where I got my undergraduate degree. And then I moved here to the States. I continued with the master's degree at Western Illinois University. That's where my brother teaches viola, by the way.
Hmm.
And after Western Illinois, I moved to Chicago. I continued there. I got a performance diploma from Roosevelt University as a student of Jay Friedman. And then I got a doctoral degree from the University of Iowa following that. So that's my education path. And yeah, it's been wonderful. I lived in Chicago for many years up until 2014, and that's when I got the job here at Western Carolina University.
Our patrons of the Brevard Philharmonic know you as our principal trombonist, but they might not realize that, yes, you are the trombone and euphonium professor at Western Carolina University. So that's my second question. Talk about what you do at that university and other ensembles you play in, and both orchestrally and chamber ensembles.
Sure, sure. So my job here at Western consists in teaching lessons mainly. I have a large, fairly large studio between 14 and 16 students, usually every semester. So that's a full load. And I also conduct the Western Carolina University Trombone Choir. So that's my job in the orchestral side of things. Obviously, principal in Brevard. I pretty much subbed in and worked with most orchestras in the region. From Knoxville Symphony a few years ago, I subbed in for Nutcracker. Then, Greenville Symphony pretty regularly. I'm playing. I get to play there. Atlanta Symphony exactly a year ago. I played a week with Atlanta. It was great, and of course, Hendersonville Symphony, Asheville Symphony, obviously several times. So it's been pretty nice. I got to play from really great orchestras and all the great orchestras around here. So it's been very rewarding, so to speak.
Hmm.
For my first year, during my first year here at Western, I was flying back to Chicago for an orchestra I was principal in. It was called Ars Viva
Mhm.
Symphony,
Yeah.
and it was a really great job at the time. So I kept it while I was working here. I flew back several times a year.
And that's an orchestra that we have in common because during my years in Chicago, Alan Hetherington was the conductor, was of Ars Viva, and he's also He was also the conductor of the Lake Forest Symphony as well during that time.
That's right.
And yeah, I was associated with both of those orchestras during several years in Chicago, and so we've had discussions about that, about some of the various orchestras we've been in at different times in our lives. And we also have another orchestra in common, and that's the Civic Orchestra of Chicago. And for our viewers who don't know about that orchestra, it's basically a pre-professional orchestra that is supported by the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And it's somewhat of a step up after conservatory or grad school level playing before you get a professional job. I played cello in the Chicago Civic Orchestra for several years, and you also played trombone in it as well.
Yes, yes. I won the audition in 2009, and at the time it was a 2-year contract. 1 year contract, and then with the possibility of another year, which was automatically renewed if you did your job, I guess.
Yeah.
But 2 years, that was the limit. And so I was in the Civic between 2009 and 2011. I also play in a couple chamber groups, pretty active groups. One of them is based here on campus. It's called the Smoky Mountain Brass Quintet. It's made up of Western Carolina faculty. The ensemble has been together for 25 years. Actually, last year was our the ensemble's 25th anniversary, and we recorded a CD, and it's an active group, and it's been really a pleasure working with them. Another chamber ensemble I'm involved with, it's called the Hungarian Trombone Connection. It's a trombone octet based in Budapest, in Hungary. So members of the octet are orchestral musicians and teachers based in Hungary, but also who work and live in Germany, Austria. Um, they play, some of our members play in the National Orchestra in Hungary, National Radio Orchestra in Hungary, Stuttgart Radio Orchestra. So it's been a wonderful experience. It really helped me professionally and personally.
So, my next question is, how long have you been playing trombone, and was it your first instrument? Because oftentimes brass players will start on trumpet, but then they're better suited for trombone, or vice versa. So, tell us about your history with the instrument.
Sure. It's my first instrument. I started fairly late, at least according to European standards, where a pianist or string player will start in first grade, and a wind player will start in fifth grade. I started in ninth grade, freshman year high school, and that was pretty much an exception. They didn't even want to admit me to the school. I went to a specialized high school. It's called the High School for the Arts. So we all had a major, and so from freshman year high school, you were a music major specializing in a particular instrument. And my the trombone teacher in the school just admitted me because he was supportive, and he said, you can do it. But I started from zero, not just the instrument, music as well. So I had no clue what the C major scale is, and I was already 15. And so I got in, and so they made an exception. I was surrounded by all these musicians at the time, young music students who have been studying at that point for 8 years or at least 4 years.
Mm.
And so it was an interesting environment for me. I always felt that I'm, those marathon races where the you're not the last. You're the one who all the cars passed and people are already walking on the street, and you're still kind of running in the back, and no one knows. People think the race is over. You're still. So that was me, and yeah, it all started there.
So, something that you and I share in common is we both teach at universities. I'm director of orchestras at the University of Tennessee. You are the trombone and euphonium professor at Western Carolina University. This semester has certainly been different than any other. There have been a lot of challenges, and we've had to get creative with trying to provide the best education we can for our students while still acknowledging that there are limitations with the pandemic going on. So I'm very curious to know what kinds of things have you been doing this semester? How has your semester been? What kinds of things have you been doing? How have your students been doing? How have you been doing? Things like that. So tell us about how this semester has gone for you.
Sure, it's been a challenge, of course. I think everyone would agree with that. The students, let me start with the students. I think kudos to them. They have been really great. They got into something they didn't sign up for. Of course, same for us. But they did really well. I guess they rolled, uh, you know rolled with the punches, quote unquote. And every week they just looked at the challenges. They dealt with it and they went on. Fortunately, uh, for my students, for my studio, no one got sick, so that's really great.
Good.
And in that regard, it was a successful semester, if you can call it like
Uh,
that.
Absolutely. Just having health and safety, just that's been one of the primary rallying cries, at least from all the universities I've heard of, is just make sure everyone's safe and healthy. And so that kudos to you and your studio for that.
Absolutely. That was my number one goal, being a trombone professor, euphonium professor, wind players. Obviously, we cannot function with masks on. There's some masks now with cuts and some new research about that, but early on, what we knew is that the aerosolized particles are they hang out in a room, so it's not really safe to be in one room, one studio with a student playing back and forth. I had to figure things out. So eventually I ended up teaching outside. The university put up a few large tents on campus, and I ended up teaching outside half of the semester, under the tent, and another half of the semester I just taught on Zoom. So we avoided being in my office for lessons. It worked out well ultimately. As I mentioned, no one got sick, and I think everyone learned as much as it was possible. I think it was a good semester overall. Um, and for myself, I just decided to take it a day at a time, a week at a time. No long-term plans, because I knew early on we really can't plan for anything, even though the instinct is to plan because it's just so embedded in us that we always plan ahead. But it was impossible this semester, so I just took it a day at a time, and tried to do my best every day, with being safe, staying healthy, and teaching, and giving to the students what I have.
So my last question is, when you are not doing music, what kind of things do you like to do? Hobbies and other interests?
Sure. First of all, the campus here at Western, it's located in a beautiful part of the country, really. We are up in the Appalachian Mountains. The Smoky Mountain National Park is pretty much around us. So, and we are just about 20 minutes from the Cherokee Indian Reservation. So it's a very neat place to live and work. It's beautiful outdoors, so there's a lot of outdoorsy activities, hiking, biking, all kind of outdoorsy activities. So that's something which we do here often. I also play soccer. So from my early years back in Europe,
Mm.
and there's a group here on campus of a few faculty and students, and we get together and play. It was a little bit challenging this past semester, but we managed to play a little bit fairly in a safe way, of course, outside. And so that's also a passion of mine. I follow sports, I watch sports, and another hobby or passion rather, it's airplanes. So I watch a lot of and then watch and read documentaries, all kind of stuff about planes. I don't fly yet. It's on the bucket list to start learning.
Well, Zsolt, it has been a pleasure to talk with you today, and thank you so much for joining. I enjoyed reminiscing about orchestras that you and I have a mutual acquaintance with, and I do very much look forward to seeing you in person once again when the Brevard Philharmonic can once again take the stage. But in the meantime, it was great to talk with you and allow our patrons to get to learn a little bit more about you.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure and looking forward to see you as well.
Thank you so much, Zsolt, and take care and have great holidays.
Same for you. Thank you. Bye bye.